Hello! If you're visiting for the first time, it's fantastic to have you here. And if you're a returning listener, welcome back. This video features mostly true scary stories with the sound of gentle rain in the background. If you're looking for something to help with sleeplessness, anxiety, or stress, you're in the right place. If you enjoy the stories, I'd be grateful if you'd subscribe. Thank you for being here. Have you ever wondered about the mysteries hiding in the shadows? You're in for quite the adventure. Today, I'm sharing a spooky story that dives deep into the world of ghosts and their connection with social media. Imagine scrolling through your phone late at night and finding something that makes your heart race. Before we jump in, I have something special just for you. If you're looking to shed some pounds without lifting a finger, even while you sleep, check out this amazing weight loss supplement. Just click the link in the description below to learn more. Now, sit back and get ready to be scared. Make sure to subscribe, and don't forget to tell me where you're listening from in the comments. Let's dive into this eerie tale that might just keep you up at night. I opened my phone, feeling a chill run down my spine. The late hour made everything around me feel quieter, almost too quiet. I decided to check my social media before bed, scrolling through the usual funny memes and food pictures. It was a comforting habit, a little escape before sleep. But tonight felt different. Something in the air felt heavy, like the world was holding its breath. As I kept scrolling, something caught my eye. A friend of mine had shared a video. The caption said, "Look what I found in the woods." I clicked on it, feeling a mix of curiosity and unease. The screen lit up with an image of a dark, twisted forest. The trees looked like they were reaching out, trying to grab the camera. I could hear the wind howling in the background of the video, and there was a moment when everything seemed too still. Suddenly, out of the shadows, I saw a figure. I squinted, replaying the moment over and over. The figure was pale, with sunken eyes that seemed to stare right through the screen. I felt a shiver crawl up my back. My heart started to race, and I wished I hadn't watched the video. I sent a message to my friend, asking if they were okay. But while I waited, something strange happened. My phone began to glitch. The screen flickered, and for a moment, it looked like the figure from the video was there on my screen, reaching out toward me. I jumped back, feeling scared but also curious. When I looked back at my messages, I noticed something odd, a new friend request from someone I didn't know. Their profile picture was empty, just a dark circle that felt like it was watching me. I hesitated. Should I accept it? A voice in my head warned me not to, but I felt drawn to it, almost like it was calling me. I clicked on the profile. There were no posts, no information, just a date, today. My heart skipped a beat. I could feel the air around me grow colder. Just then, the lights in my room flickered, and I heard a faint sound, like whispering. I looked around, thinking it was just my mind playing tricks on me. But the whispers grew louder, surrounding me. I couldn't make out the words, but it felt like they were urging me to reach out to that dark profile. Every second felt like an eternity as I considered my next move. I felt frozen in place, staring at the screen, the figure in the woods firmly in my mind. After a long moment, I took a deep breath and clicked accept. Instantly, my phone buzzed. A message popped up from the new friend. "You shouldn't have done that." My heart dropped, and every hair on my body stood on end. I looked around, half expecting to see someone standing in my room, watching me. I quickly typed back, asking who they were. The reply came instantly. "I can show you the truth." My fingers trembled as I tried to think of what to say next. Was this some kind of prank? But it didn't feel like one. The atmosphere was thick with a sense of dread, and the whispers hadn't stopped. They seemed to swirl around me, increasing in intensity, like a warning. Feeling cornered, I decided to block the account. I clicked block, but before I could breathe a sigh of relief, my screen turned black for a moment. Then it flashed back on, and there it was, the same dark profile, still staring at me. Panic bubbled in my chest. How could this be happening? I fumbled with my phone, trying to make sense of what was going on. In an attempt to shake off the panic, I decided to step outside and get some fresh air. I opened the door, only to find a dense fog wrapping around everything. The streetlight flickered eerily, casting distorted shadows. I hesitated, looking back at my phone, but I felt the need to push forward. As I walked, the whispers faded into the background, replaced by a heavy silence. But then I noticed something. There in the distance stood a figure resembling the one from the video. It was hard to see through the fog, but I felt its gaze on me, heavy and piercing. It didn't move, just stood there as if waiting for me to come closer. My heart raced, and a chill ran through my body. What was it? Was it a ghost? A trick of the light? I felt the pull of fear and curiosity at the same time as I stepped closer, despite every part of me telling me to run. The closer I got, the clearer the figure became. I could see its face, and I realized with horror that it looked like someone I knew, a girl from school who had gone missing months ago. She wore a sad, lost expression. I felt paralyzed. What was she doing here? Why was she in the fog? Suddenly, my phone buzzed again, jolting me from my shock. I looked down to see a message from that same dark profile. "You're next." I stood frozen, staring at her face. The girl looked just like the one I remembered, the one everyone said was gone forever. My thoughts raced. Why was she here? Was she a ghost? Or was this some cruel trick? Just as I took a step back, the fog thickened around me, and I felt like I was being pulled toward her. I could hear her voice then, soft and whispery, almost like a breeze. "I need your help," she said, her eyes wide with urgency. "You have to listen." A cold shiver ran down my spine, and I felt an overwhelming urge to understand, to know what had happened to her. Why was she out here, and how did she connect to the strange events that had been happening on my phone? For a fleeting moment, I thought about running, but against my better judgment, I stepped closer, drawn in by her haunting voice. "What happened to you?" I asked, my voice shaky as I tried to keep fear at bay. The fog swirled around us, and the night felt darker, pressing in like a heavy blanket. Her face twisted with pain as she spoke. "I was taken by someone who came after me, and now they want you too." Each word felt like a weight, heavy with sorrow. "I need you to stop them. You can't let them keep taking." The way she said it sent chills through me. Was I in danger too? Suddenly, there was a loud crack, like thunder, echoing in the night. I jumped back, instinctively shielding my eyes as a whirlwind of leaves and fog surged through the air. In that moment of chaos, the girl's figure shimmered, flickering like a faulty light bulb. Panic clawed at my throat as I realized she was fading away. "You have to hurry," she yelled, her voice barely reaching my ears above the howling wind. Just then, my phone buzzed again in my pocket. The cold dread washed over me as I pulled it out, my heart pounding. The dark profile had sent another message. "You shouldn't have listened to her." I felt a wave of terror wash over me as the words sunk in. It felt like a threat, and I knew I had to act fast. I looked back toward where the girl had been, but all I saw was the swirling fog, thick and impenetrable. Time was running out. I needed to figure out how to help her. But how? What could I do against whatever was reaching through the darkness? As I turned to leave the spot, I noticed something on the ground near where she had vanished. It was a small, crumpled piece of paper, barely visible among the swirling leaves. My heart raced as I knelt to pick it up. With trembling hands, I unfolded it, my eyes scanning the messy handwriting. "Find the truth in the old house," it said. "They wait for you." My breath caught in my throat. The old house was just outside of town, rumored to be haunted. It was a place that everyone whispered about, but no one dared to visit. Could this be where I needed to go? Before I could think, I knew I had to leave this fog behind and get to that house. I bolted back toward my street, my heart pounding like a drum. Each step felt heavier, the shadows around me stretching and reaching as if trying to pull me back. I could feel the weight of unseen eyes watching me, and the whispering returned, getting louder with each step. Reaching my home, I quickly grabbed my jacket and the flashlight from the kitchen. I knew I couldn't waste any time. I opened the door, running toward the direction of the old house, hardly hearing the sound of my footsteps over the whispers in the wind. As I approached the path leading to the forest, the air turned stale and cold, and a deep chill wrapped around me like an icy hand. With each step, I felt the darkness closing in, and the trees twisted in their shapes, looking alive. The whispers seemed to swirl around, filling my ears with unintelligible sounds. I tried to focus on the path ahead, but my heart raced. The feeling of being followed crept over me, sending a wave of dread through my body. As I reached the entrance of the forest, I saw the outline of the old house in the distance. It stood tall and ominous, its windows dark and empty. Anxiety clawed at my heart as I imagined what lay inside. But I couldn't turn back now, not when I felt the weight of the girl's plea pressing on me. I took a deep breath and stepped inside, the old door creaking as it opened. Inside, the air was thick with dust and despair. Moonlight streamed through broken windows, casting eerie shadows on cracked walls. As I moved deeper into the house, I heard soft thuds that sounded like footsteps. I froze, holding my breath. Was someone else here? The hairs on my neck stood on end, and I felt a chill that ran through my ribs. "Hello," I called out, my voice echoing in the hollow space. No response came, but the soft rustling of something in the shadows. I flicked on my flashlight, the beam shaking as I swept it across the dim room. Cobwebs clung to the corners, and the smell of mold hung heavily in the air. Suddenly, the whispers came again, clearer now. "Don't find the truth," they warned, swirling around me like a tempest. "Leave now while you still can." I felt an overwhelming sense of fear creeping up my spine. Every instinct screamed at me to run, to get out of this haunted place. But I couldn't abandon the girl, the truth, or whatever was lurking in the shadows. I pressed onward, moving toward a narrow staircase that spiraled down into darkness. The air grew colder, and each step felt like walking toward something that was waiting for me. As I descended, the whispers grew louder, their urgency feeding my fear and curiosity. I reached the bottom, the flashlight revealing a narrow room filled with old furniture and broken mirrors. In the center of the room stood an old mirror, its surface clouded and cracked. My heart raced as I felt drawn to it, the whispers turning frantic. "Look," they urged. I stepped closer, feeling like I was in a dream. As I gazed into the mirror, the surface shimmered. It felt alive. Suddenly, I was not just seeing my reflection. I saw the girl from earlier standing behind me, her expression desperate. "You must find the others," she said, her voice echoing in a haunting way. Before it is too late, before I could react, the mirror changed, showing images of other people, blurred and distorted faces, each one reaching out, their mouths moving in silent screams. My heart screamed with panic as I realized the truth. The darkness had taken them too. I couldn't help but wonder what would happen to me if I stayed any longer. But the glow from the mirror turned dark, and I heard a soft laughter echoing in the corners of my mind. A cold shiver swept through me as a deep voice, different from the whispers, said, "You have come to visit me." The darkness filled the air, pressing around me like a weight. I turned to leave, panic gripping my heart, but the door slammed shut behind me. I was trapped. Fear surged through me as I realized I wasn't alone. The room felt cold and heavy, like a dense fog was wrapping around me. I pressed my back against the cold wall, heart pounding in my chest as I looked around, searching for a way out. The door I had come through was locked tight, and I felt a sudden wave of hopelessness wash over me. I couldn't let panic take over. I had to think. Just then, the laughter returned, deeper and more echoing than before. It circled around me, getting louder, filling my ears. I felt as if I was losing my mind in this strange place. Shadows flickered in the corners of my vision, growing and shrinking like puppets on strings. I couldn't tell where the laughter was coming from, but it felt like it was coming from everywhere. A movement caught my eye near the mirror. I turned slowly, dread creeping into my bones. The reflection shimmered again, and for a moment, I thought I saw the girl's face again. She looked terrified, her eyes wide, pleading for me to do something. "You can't stay," she whispered, her voice sounding more urgent. "You have to leave before it takes you too." Before I could respond, I heard another noise, heavy footsteps behind me. I spun around, flashlight in hand, my heart racing. The shadows shifted again, and a dark, towering figure loomed in the doorway I had just come through. It was a shape that seemed to absorb the light, the edges blurry and undefined. I felt my breath hitch in my throat as I realized this was no ordinary human. "Why did you come here?" the figure asked, its voice bone-chilling, echoing with a dark echo that sent shivers through my entire body. I wanted to scream, but the sound got stuck in my throat. Instead, I slowly backed away, my flashlight trembling in my hand as I aimed it at the figure, but the beam seemed to fade against its darkness. I'm just looking for answers," I stammered, trying to keep my voice steady. My mind raced, recalling the words of the girl. Was this the thing that had taken her away? The one who was reaching through the screen and into my life? The figure leaned closer, and I could feel the icy air surrounding it cutting through my skin. "You seek the truth, yet you do not know the price you must pay." Panic exploded inside me as my instincts screamed to run, but my feet were planted firmly in fear. I suddenly remembered the stories I had heard about this house, the people who had come and never returned. Something deep within me urged me to think quickly. "Leave her alone," I yelled, surprising myself with the strength of my voice. I raised the flashlight higher, push ing back against the darkness. "You don't have to keep doing this." The towering shadow paused, a low growl rumbling through the room, a sound so terrifying that I felt it reverberate in my chest. "You think you can save her?" It laughed, a sound that made my skin crawl. "She is mine, as were the others." My thoughts raced frantically, seeking any way to break free from this nightmare. "No!" I shouted. "You can't have me." In that moment, I realized I had the power to fight back. I turned back to the mirror, my lifeline to the girl and her lost friends. "What do you want?" I asked the figure, desperation thick in my voice. "What will it take to let her go?" It paused, as if considering my words. The room fell silent, and I could hear my heartbeat thundering in my ears. "You are weak," it sneered. "You do not know what it means to face true fear." It lunged toward me, shadows stretching like long, clawed hands, and I felt a surge of terror. Drawing deep from somewhere inside, I yelled, "I will not give in." I turned to the mirror, desperate for an answer. "Tell me how to help her." The mirror trembled and flashed again, revealing fleeting images of the other lost souls trapped beneath the glass. I could hear their cries, their whispered pleas for help, giving me the strength I needed. "You have to break the curse," came the girl's voice again, echoing in the chamber. "You must confront the darkness." Gathering every ounce of courage I had, I remembered the piece of paper, the truth I needed to uncover. "You think you can hold me here?" I demanded, raising the flashlight defiantly. "I won't let you take anyone else." Suddenly, the temperature dropped even more, and I felt as if I was being pulled away from the mirror. The figure advanced, anger radiating from it like heat, twisting and writhing in the shadows. "You think you can escape?" it growled. "There is no way out." I realized the truth in those words. I couldn't just sit back and wait for it to strike. I had to face it, to confront my fear head-on. I stepped forward, feeling the weight of my own heartbeat. "I will find a way," I muttered, the determination rising in my chest like a fire. With one swift movement, I pushed my hand against the mirror, tears of fear and resoluteness brimming in my eyes. "Let them go!" I shouted, feeling the power of my voice electrify the air. The mirror shone brightly, illuminating the room and forcing the darkness to recoil. In that moment, the figure let out a strangled roar, echoing through the air, shaking the very walls of the house. I felt like I was at the center of a storm, the energy swirling around me, pulling me in every direction. The walls began to crack, deep fissures forming as light poured through from the mirror. The girl's voice rang out again, clearer this time, mingled with the cries of others trapped in the darkness. "You can break the curse. Use the light." As her words echoed in the chamber, my resolve shifted into an all-consuming fire, filling the room with warmth. I gathered everything I had, drawing on the power of hope hidden deep in my heart. "Together!" I shouted, pushing against the fear that gripped me. The room shook, and I felt reality bending, the whispers rising into a cacophony of sound until they all fused into one single note, a scream of liberation. As the light intensified, the figure shrieked, trying to block the brilliance. But it was too late. I felt the darkness splintering, collapsing in upon itself like a withering shadow at dawn. Just as it seemed to be winning, I pressed harder against the mirror, fueled by the courage of everyone whose spirit had been trapped. The boundaries of darkness began to fracture further, and I saw a path forming in the light. "Now is your chance," I yelled as I felt the last remnants of fear dissolve away. I could almost see the girl reaching for me, and I knew this was our moment to escape. I plunged forward, arms outstretched, feeling the warmth of light wrapping around me like a protective blanket. "We're coming for you," I shouted, believing that together we could break free. As I dove into the light, I felt the darkness shifting, crashing against my back in a fit of rage. I heard one last roar, a sound filled with fury and defeat that echoed in the silence as I crossed the threshold. I felt a powerful surge as I burst through the threshold. Light enveloped me completely, and the sensation was like breaking the surface of dark water, air flooding my lungs again. I stumbled, falling onto the ground, gasping for breath. The room was bright, and clarity flooded over me like a warm wave. Glancing around, I quickly realized I was no longer in the old house. I was outside, in the familiar warmth of the night, the air sweet with the scent of grass and wildflowers. It felt unreal, like a dream dissolving in the morning light. But as I looked back, I could still see the outline of the house in the distance, and I knew I wasn't truly free yet. "Is she with me?" I murmured, wondering if the girl had made it too. Panic gripped me as I realized I didn't see her anywhere. "Hello," I called, my voice trembling. No reply came, but as I stood back up, shaking off the dust and fear, I sensed a presence near me. Turning slowly, my heart thudding in my chest, I saw her standing a few feet away. Relief flooded through me, but it was quickly clouded by dread seeing her face so pale, almost ghostly in the moonlight. "You're back," she said, her voice a whisper as if she couldn't quite believe it either. "Are you okay?" I asked, rushing over to her side. "What happened back there?" "They're not gone," she said, her eyes wide and fearful. "They're still waiting for us?" My heart sank at the realization. The darkness we left wasn't just gone. It was still lurking, ready to pounce at any moment. She turned her gaze toward the old house, still standing ominously in the distance. "We have to do something before it comes back," she urged, her voice trembling. "It'll try to take us again, and we have to stop it." I looked back towards the house, its windows like dark eyes that watched us closely. Uncertainty washed over me, but I felt an urge to protect her, to fight back against whatever lay within those haunted walls. "What do we do?" I asked, feeling the weight of the moment rest heavily on my shoulders. "There's power in numbers," she replied, her voice gaining strength. "We need to find the others who were taken and bring them here. Together, we can stop it." Determination sparked within me, pushing away the lingering fear. I nodded. "Let's find them." We took off, running toward the nearest path leading back into the woods. The trees loomed ahead, their twisted branches reaching down like skeletal hands trying to pull us in. I fought against the memories of dread that swirled in my mind, taking deep breaths to calm my racing thoughts. As we ventured deeper into the woods, the atmosphere shifted, turning thick and oppressive. Shadows danced along the paths, and I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched. Each time a branch snapped or leaves rustled, my stomach churned with anxiety. "Stay close," I whispered to her, my voice low. She nodded, her face set with grim resolve. Just then, we caught sight of strange shapes moving among the trees. My breath hitched as I peered closer, seeing flickering figures that seemed to shimmer in and out of existence. "Those must be them," she murmured, her eyes bright with fright and hope. I could see them more clearly now, their faces pale and hollowed, eyes empty as they wandered aimlessly. They were trapped, just like she had been. I could sense their fear, their desperation, and it clawed at my heart. I stepped forward, trying to call out to them, but the moment my voice pierced the air, the figures turned towards us, their faces contorting in confusion. "Help us," one of them cried out, reaching toward me with ghostly fingers. "Yes," another echoed, a flicker of hope in their translucent eyes. "Please, we want to get out." Something stirred within me, a determination fueled by their pleas. "We will help you," I shouted, hoping to rally them. "We've come to set you free." But as I announced our intent, a chilling laughter echoed through the trees, powerful and mocking. "You think you can save them?" The voice slithered out like smoke, wrapping around us, making my skin crawl. The air grew heavy once more, and the figures began to waver. "No," the girl beside me cried out, reaching for the others. "Don't fade away now." The dark figure stepped out from behind the trees, its form looming ominously over us. "This is my domain," it snarled, its voice echoing with hollow authority. "You will never leave, and neither will they." I felt a surge of fear, but I refused to let it overpower me. "We will fight for them," I shouted defiantly, gripping her hand tightly. "We won't let you win." The figure's laughter growled louder, reverberating through the woods. "You have no power here," it taunted, and darkness spilled from it like ink. The shadows crawled forward, reaching for us, and the air crackled with malevolence. I pulled the girl back, feeling the heat of the shadows brush against my skin like icy fingers. My mind raced, frantically searching for a way to stop this beast. "Together," I shouted again, more forcefully this time. "We can do this." With sheer willpower, I focused on the collective strength of those lost souls. Their yearning for freedom ignited something deep inside me, and I could feel a light forming within the darkness. A warm glow pulsed at my core, spreading to my limbs, filling me with courage. "Join us," I yelled, directing my voice toward the lost souls. "Feel the light with us." They began to emerge, gathering their strength, as if my words had ignited a spark of hope inside them. Light flickered in their eyes, brightening amidst the darkness. The shadows hesitated, their grasp loosening as the spirits rose up, surrounded by golden sparks of light. The dark figure wailed in frustration, realizing it was losing its hold. "You cannot defeat me," it howled, rage burning in its voice, but I felt the power building around us, stronger than I had ever felt before. "The light will win," the girl beside me said, her voice a steady anchor in the thickening chaos. I nodded, determination blooming in my chest. As the darkness recoiled, I took another step forward. "We will break this curse," I declared with every ounce of strength. "Together," the words echoed in the night air, a rallying cry that swirled around us, joining our voices with those of the lost. The darkness twisted violently, struggling against the growing light as it clashed with the shadows. Just as it seemed the darkness might win, a bright beam shot upward, piercing the night sky. In that moment, it felt as if hope itself burst forth, illuminating everything around us. I heard the laughter of the spirits merging with the girl's voice as they flowed into the radiant light. "Now, push it back," I yelled, feeling the energy surge within me. The shadows shrieked, pulling away, as the light grew stronger, pushing against the darkness with unyielding force. Everything shook with the roar of the struggle, but I stood firm. "Keep fighting," I called. "We are not alone." As the light consumed everything, I couldn't tell what was real anymore. Was this a dream or some waking nightmare? And yet, I felt an overwhelming calm wash over me. There was no turning back now. We would break the chains of darkness, even if it tried to drag us back down. As the light swelled around us, the shadows twisted violently, writhing like angry snakes trying to escape. I could hear the echoes of those lost souls joining us, their voices blending together in a chorus of hope and defiance. The darkness, once so powerful, began to falter, retreating as if it were being melted by the light we had ignited. "We can do this," I shouted, feeling a surge of energy coursing through my veins. With every word, the brilliant glow expanded like the rising sun, illuminating the entire clearing. The trees, once looming and sinister, now seemed to stand as guardians, watching over our battle against the dark. But just as I felt we were gaining the upper hand, a sudden chill swept across the ground, and the laughter returned, filling the air with dread. "You think you can banish me?" The voice echoed like thunder, deep and menacing, sending ripples of fear down my spine. "This is only the beginning." The shadows swarmed back, thicker than before, wrapping around my legs, dragging me toward the ground. I fought against their grasp, panic swelling in my chest. "Stay together," I shouted, turning toward the girl beside me. Her face was a mask of determination, but I could see fear flickering in her eyes. She knew what was at stake. "We can't let it win," I yelled, clenching my fists. I focused all my energy, remembering the warmth of the light we had created. I thought of those trapped souls, their desperate need for freedom. I couldn't let them down. "Everyone, join hands," I urged, reaching out to the spirits around me. Slowly, they began to gather closer, their ethereal forms merging with ours, hands reaching towards each other. The darkness hesitated, as if confused by our unity. I felt the light radiating brighter as the energy from each spirit surged into one collective force, a dazzling beacon against the suffocating shadows. "Push back," I commanded, my voice strong and clear. We focused all our collective thoughts, the desire for freedom burning brightly. The shadows seemed to scream, howling in anger and desperation. The air crackled with tension, and I could feel the very ground vibrating beneath me. Suddenly, a deep rumbling shook the earth, and the figure emerged again, more monstrous than before. It towered over us, its eyes glowing like hot coals, filled with fury. "You are nothing!" it screamed, the sound deafening, choking the air around us. "You think you can defy me?" But I could see the cracks in its facade, the way it flinched from the light we created. It was losing power, and I couldn't let up now. "Together, we are stronger," I cried, louder than before. The spirits responded, their voices rising until they drowned out the creature's roar. As they channeled their energy into me, an intense heat surged through my body, filling me with fierce determination. It felt like fire, igniting every inch of my being. I turned to the girl, her face illuminated by the growing glow, and nodded. "This is it." With one last push, we lunged forward, the light exploding from our hands and fusing into a radiant beam directed straight at the dark figure. It shrieked, a sound unlike anything I'd ever heard, echoing through the night, shaking the very foundations of the trees around us. Suddenly, the shadows retreated, swirling erratically as if caught in a storm. The light clashed against the darkness with tremendous force, and I could see the fear on the creature's face as it thrashed back. "No, you cannot banish me. I am eternal," it howled, but the sound was wavering now, losing power as the darkness began to dissipate. I felt the air shift. The spirits surged forward, merging their energies with ours, creating a surge of light that grew brighter than the sun. "We will take back what is ours," I shouted, feeling more powerful with each word. As we pushed against the darkness, I could hear the desperate cries of the souls echoing. "Let us be free," they shouted, and I felt their collective will mixing with mine, forming a bond that was unbreakable. With one final shout, we unleashed everything we had, and the light exploded outward in a brilliant flash that swallowed the darkness whole. In that blinding moment, I felt a tingling sensation wash over me, like the embrace of warm, spring air after a harsh winter. The cacophony of shrieks faded away, replaced by a profound silence that settled over the woods. I could hardly believe my eyes as I looked around. The darkness had dissolved, leaving behind only shimmering motes of light that sparkled like fireflies. The spirits were gradually losing their haunting appearance, their faces brightening with joy and relief. The girl beside me smiled, tears of happiness glimmering in her eyes. "We did it," she exclaimed, and I felt a wave of relief washing over me. But before I could respond, A sudden chill crept back through the trees, a reminder that the struggle wasn't over. A lingering whisper danced through the air, a sound that sent a shiver down my spine. "You may think you have won," the voice hissed, colder than ice. But darkness never truly dies. My heart raced again as I glanced around, feeling the air grow heavy once more. The ground beneath me trembled slightly, and I realized we were still at risk. I had to remain vigilant. "We have to leave," I said, rallying my thoughts. "Now." The girl nodded, fear flashing in her eyes again. Together, we turned toward the path leading out of the woods, urgency propelling us forward. The trees seemed to shift around us, their branches reaching out like grasping hands trying to hold us back. But we pressed on, fear and determination driving us further away from the haunting whispers. I glanced back one last time at the place where we had fought our battle. The dark figure lingered at the edge of the clearing, shadowy tendrils still writhing and stretching as if it were trying to break free. "Stay away!" I shouted, my voice echoing through the night. The entity faltered for a moment, but the rage in its eyes remained. "Next time, I will take you both," it replied, the words slithering through the air like a poisonous fog. I clenched my fists, feeling a new surge of strength born from my anger. "That will never happen," I vowed, turning away and charging down the path. The girl kept pace beside me, determination lighting her face. Together, we fled the haunted woods into the light of the moonlit night. But deep inside, I knew we hadn't won the war. The battle was just one of many we would face against the encroaching darkness. I could feel its presence lingering in the shadows, a constant reminder that we were not safe. With every step away from that cursed place, I steeled myself for the fight ahead, now more aware that the darkness would always find a way to creep back in. But I wouldn't let fear control me. I would stand firm and fight for those trapped in shadows. I would find a way to end this once and for all, no matter the cost. As I ran down the path, the cold night air nipped at my skin, but the warmth of the glowing spirits lingered in my heart. The girl kept pace, her breathing heavy yet steady. I felt a strange connection to her now, like we were bound by something much deeper than just our shared fear. But even with the light still shimmering in my mind, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being followed. Each rustle of leaves and snap of twigs made my heart race faster. I could sense the darkness behind us, lurking just out of sight, waiting for the right moment to strike again. Finally, we reached the edge of the woods, a faint clearing opening before us. The moonlight spilled across the ground, giving us a moment of solace. I paused, turning back to check on the shadows. They were still there, creeping along the tree line like a dark tide held back by a thin barrier of light. Suddenly, a frigid wind whipped through the clearing, chilling me to the bone. I shivered, wrapping my arms around myself. "We have to keep moving," I said, forcing my voice to stay calm, even though my insides felt like a storm about to break. In the distance, I could see the faint outline of a town, my town. "If we can make it there, we'll be safe," I urged her, gesturing toward it. As we sprinted forward, my thoughts raced. I had to warn everyone about what we faced. The darkness wasn't just a figment of imagination. It was real, and it wanted us. Each step felt heavier, the air growing thick with an unsettling tension as we neared the town. The streets were empty, the silence echoing with an eerie calm that felt wrong. It was too quiet for night, and the shadows in the street seemed to pulse as if they breathed like living things. "Where is everyone?" I whispered, unease creeping into my voice. The girl glanced around, her face pale. "I don't know. It's too quiet." Suddenly, a distant sound shattered the silence. A scream echoed through the streets, raw and chilling. My blood ran cold. "Did you hear that?" I asked, fear prickling at the back of my neck. "It came from the old town hall," she exclaimed, pointing toward the looming building at the end of the street. A shroud of darkness seemed to gather around it, as if the shadows were thickening and growing darker, curling around the structure like fingers grasping for something. A mix of dread and determination filled me. "We have to check it out," I said, though the thought made my stomach twist. We couldn't just ignore a scream. As we made our way toward the town hall, the atmosphere shifted, thick with the stench of decay and despair. The doors hung ajar, creaking ominously in the wind. I approached cautiously, holding my breath. My instinct screamed for me to turn back, but curiosity compelled me forward. The interior of the hall was dimly lit, the flickering light from a chipped old lantern casting shadows that danced like the ghosts of forgotten souls. I could hear muffled whispers mingling with the sound of my own heartbeat, the air charged with an unshakable tension. "Hello!" I called out, my voice wavering. "Is anyone there?" Silence hung heavy in the air, and I could feel the girl's hand grip my elbow, a silent plea for caution. I pressed on, stepping deeper into the heart of the hall. The whispers intensified, swirling around us like a storm, mumbling incoherently, making it impossible to focus. Suddenly, a cold draft swept through the room, extinguishing the lantern's light. Darkness engulfed us completely, and I froze, my heart racing wildly. I could feel the shadows closing in around us, a suffocating presence that seemed to suck all warmth from the air. "Stay close to me," the girl whispered, her voice barely audible in the thick silence. I held her hand tightly, trying to draw strength from our connection as the darkness coated the walls. A faint sound echoed in the void, a low hiss that sent chills racing down my spine. "You shouldn't be here," it said, slithering through the shadows. "We came to help," I shouted back, my voice stronger than I felt. "Who are you?" A figure began to materialize from the gloom. It was a woman, her face pale and hollow, her eyes sunken and lost. "Help," she echoed mockingly, the sound a dying whisper. "You." I stepped back, fear gripping my heart. "What do you mean?" But before she could answer, a loud crash resonated. Ted from above, as if something heavy had fallen. I jumped, instinctively pulling the girl behind me. "We need to get out of here." Suddenly, the whispers turned into shrieks, rising to a pitch that was unbearable. Shadows writhed on the walls, twisting into grotesque shapes that made my skin crawl. The woman's face contorted in anguish as she collapsed, her form dissolving like smoke. "The darkness feeds on despair," she said, her voice fading away. "You can't escape it." Panic surged through me, and I grabbed the girl's hand again. "Let's move," I urged, pulling her toward the door. Just as we turned to flee, the air shifted with a sickening pop. The exit was gone, replaced by a solid wall of darkness, smooth and impenetrable. My heart raced, the walls closing in on us as if the town hall itself were alive, feeding on our fear. "Now you're trapped," the echoing voice taunted, cold and cruel, filling the air around us. I felt the panic rise within me, but I couldn't give in to the fear. We dashed deeper into the hall, searching for another way out as the shadows slithered closer, reaching for us with icy fingers. I could feel their cold breath on my neck, as if they were savoring our terror. "No!" I shouted defiantly, pushing against the suffocating darkness. "We will find a way out." We ran through the dimly lit corridors, heart pounding in sync with the whispers changing into desperate pleas. "Help us," they would say, voices filled with sorrow. "Don't leave us." But I couldn't let their despair ensnare us. I focused on the fleeting light we had felt before and pushed the fear aside. "Keep moving. There must be a window or a way." As we turned a corner, I spotted a faint flicker at the end of the hallway. Light. It beckoned us like a promise of salvation. I gripped the girl's hand tighter and raced toward it, my heart pounding with newfound hope. With each step, the whispers grew quieter, and the darkness seemed to pull back slightly, as if it could sense our determination. We reached the end of the hall, bursting through a set of old double doors. The light flooded over us, bright and almost blinding. I felt a rush of relief, forgetting the terror that had chased us. But as we stepped into the room, reality hit me like a brick wall. It wasn't a sanctuary, it was a trap. We stood in a circular chamber, stone walls closing in with no sign of exit. The light was coming from an ethereal source above, illuminating the center, where a strange symbol glowed on the floor, a design intertwined with grotesque faces and haunting figures that writhed as if alive. "What is this place?" the girl gasped, her voice echoing in the chamber. I took a cautious step closer, my curiosity overwhelming my fear. "I don't know, but it feels alive," I replied, awe and dread mixing within me. A chilling wind swept through the chamber, whispering words that were unintelligible but laced with malice. It felt as if the very walls were breathing around us, and I could sense the dark presence growing stronger. "We have to go back," she cried, panic rising again. "We can't stay here." But before I could respond, the symbol on the floor pulsed with energy. The faces seemed to turn, and I realized they were watching us, their hollow eyes reflecting our fear. "No!" I shouted, stepping back in alarm. The darkness began to swirl around us, thick and suffocating. I could see the horrifying figure in the shadows once more, its presence feeding off the growing despair. "This is the end," it hissed, advancing toward us, the shadows erupting like a tidal wave. But deep within me, I felt something ignite again. I wouldn't let it end like this. "We won't be consumed," I yelled, clenching my fists. The girl beside me nodded, her fear transforming into determination. "We can't give up." As the darkness closed in, I felt the light from before rekindle within me, a fire raging against the encroaching terror. "Together," I shouted, more fiercely than ever. And just like that, in the eye of the storm, a surge of light exploded from us. I reached for the girl's hand, our bond fueling the glow that radiated outward, pushing against the shadows with all our might. "Get back!" I yelled, channeling everything I had into that blinding light. Eerie shrieks filled the air as the darkness recoiled, writhing and twisting in chaotic fury. And in that moment, I knew we weren't just fighting for ourselves. We were fighting for all those lost souls trapped in the shadows, binding our strength with theirs. The chamber shook violently, the walls vibrating as if responding to our combined power. The faces etched into the stone began to smile, and for a fleeting moment, I felt their hope mingle with ours. "Push!" the girl cried, her voice ringing clear as I felt the energy explode from us like a sun breaking through the night. The darkness shattered, splintering into countless shards as light flooded the chamber, enveloping us in warmth and safety. I could see the figure trapped within the radiance, its anguished screams dissipating like mist in the morning sun. And just as I thought we had triumphed, a single shadowed tendril lunged for us, breaking through the barrier at the last moment, grazing my arm with its icy touch. I screamed, stumbling backward, feeling the sharp sting of despair wash over me. "No!" I gasped, panic surging as the darkness wrapped itself around me. But in that moment, I refused to let it win. I focused on the light we had created, drawing every ounce of strength I had left. "Together!" I shouted again, calling on the spirits surrounding us, feeling their energy merging with mine. An unyielding warmth curved around me, embracing the shadows that clung to my skin. "You will not have me," I roared, pushing against the darkness with every fiber of my being. The tendril reared back, twisting and howling in fury, and with one final explosion of light, the darkness was cast out, collapsing into nothingness. Breathless, I opened my eyes, blinking through the blinding brightness as it engulfed the entire chamber. The girl stood next to me, wide-eyed and filled with awe. "We did it," she gasped, a smile breaking through her earlier fear. But as the light began to dim slowly, I felt a shadow flicker at the corner of my vision. My heart dropped in my chest. "Not yet," I thought, instinctively stepping forward as the light sputtered, revealing the figure once more. It lurked in the distance, dark and menacing, its eyes burning with anger and determination. "This isn't over," it hissed, the words slithering through the air as its form shimmered in the remaining light. I clenched my fists again, defiance igniting within me. "We'll be ready," I shouted back, my voice firm. "You will not take us." With those words, I felt the energy of the lost souls fueling my resolve, reminding me that I was not alone in this fight. The bond we had forged in the shadows would guide me through the storm ahead. I turned to the girl beside me, knowing we had to regroup. "We need to find a way to stop it for good," I said, my voice steady despite the fear gnawing at my insides. She nodded, determination shining in her eyes. "We won't let it win." Together, we stepped away from the remnants of the battle, ready to face whatever darkness awaited us. I could still feel the light pulsing within me, despite the somber reality that lay ahead. I wouldn't surrender. We were going to end this nightmare once and for all. As we walked away from the chamber, the air felt heavy, charged with the remnants of our battle. I could still sense the darkness lurking just beyond the edges of the light. The walls seemed to pulse, a heartbeat echoing through the stone, reminding me that we were not yet safe. Each step felt like a step deeper into a trap of our own making. "We have to find a way out of here," I murmured, glancing back at the flickering shadows behind us. The girl nodded, her face drawn tight with fear, but I could also see the fire of determination in her eyes. We stumbled into a dim hallway, the flickering lights overhead casting long shadows that crawled against the stone walls. I could hear the faint whispering again, soft, almost indistinct, like a chant rising from the depths of an unseen pit. It sent chills down my spine, making every hair on my body stand on end. "Do you hear that?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. She nodded, gripping my hand tighter. "It's coming from over there," she said, pointing to a heavy wooden door at the end of the corridor. The door was slightly ajar, a sliver of darkness spilling from the other side, beckoning us closer like a sinister invitation. That door seemed wrong, but I felt drawn to it, an unsettling urge to discover what lay beneath that veil of shadow. With each step toward the door, the whispers grew louder, twisting into unintelligible sounds that scratched at my mind. It felt as if the very air thickened around us, wrapping me in a suffocating blanket of dread. I hesitated for a moment, looking back to the path we'd come from. "What if we shouldn't?" I asked, doubt creeping in. "Maybe it's the way out," she urged, her voice trembling but firm. "We have to try." I took a deep breath, forcing myself to move forward. The door creaked as I pushed it open, revealing a small room shrouded in shadows. The light from the hallway barely penetrated the darkness, but there was an undeniable aura of something ancient, a chill in the air that felt alive, watching. As we stepped inside, the air grew colder, swirling around us like a living entity. The whispers turned into voices, rising and falling with an unsettling rhythm. I squinted into the gloom, trying to make out shapes and forms, but the darkness seemed to distort everything around us. I could feel the girl shiver beside me, and I had to fight the urge to turn back. Then, in the center of the room, I saw something glimmer, a small, ornate box resting on a pedestal, covered in strange symbols that pulsed with a dull light. My heart raced. "It's beautiful," I said under my breath, captivated by its presence. "But what is it?" The girl stepped closer, a mixture of curiosity and fear on her face. "Maybe it holds a clue," she suggested. I hesitated, knowing deep down that something felt off. "Do you really think we should?" I asked, glancing back toward the door, now a mere outline in the darkness. "Something is calling us," she said gently, her eyes locked on the box. "It might be our only chance." Swallowing my doubts, I stepped closer to the pedestal, reaching out a trembling hand to grasp the box. As my fingers brushed against the surface, I felt a jolt of energy surge through me, hot and cold all at once. It was as if the box was alive, responding to my touch, awakening something deep within the shadows. "Wait," she cried, but it was too late. The box erupted with light and energy, illuminating the entire room, casting terrifying shadows that danced across the walls. I stumbled back, the box slipping from my fingers and crashing to the ground, the lid bursting open. A wave of darkness poured from the box like a living creature, swirling around us with a ferocious grip. I felt it clawing at my mind, whispering my deepest fears and regrets, dragging me down into a pit of despair. "No! Get away!" I screamed, but the tendrils of shadow wrapped around me, pulling me into the void. "Stay with me," the girl yelled, her voice cutting through the haze. I clung to the last shred of strength I had left, the light inside me flickering like a dying star. The darkness was relentless, overwhelming in its cries, filling me with visions of despair, harsh echoes of laughter ringing in my ears. Just as I felt myself start to slip away, a small spark ignited within me. I remembered the warmth of the souls we had fought to save, their light radiating through the darkness. With sheer force, I summoned every ounce of willpower, focusing on that flickering spark and fueling it with hope. Together, I shouted, pulling the girl closer. The darkness recoiled as the light surged within us, brilliant against the onslaught. It was a battle of wills, light against shadows, and I felt the energy flow between us like a current. "We can do this," I urged her, hoping she could feel my resolve. Suddenly, the room trembled, the walls vibrating with the clash of our light against the encroaching darkness. Figures emerged from the shadows, twisted and angry, their faces contorted with rage. "You cannot break the bond of despair," they screamed, their voices echoing in the small room, overwhelming us. "Not today," I yelled, channeling everything I had into that light. We were not alone. We were together, stronger than the darkness, and I felt the spirits of the lost around us, their voices intertwining with my own. "We will not be consumed." With that final push, the light exploded outward, filling every crevice of the room, enveloping the darkness in an incandescent embrace. The shadowy figures shrieked in agony, twisting and writhing as the light burned them away. I could see hope blooming in the darkness, fading the shadows that had tormented me. But just as the last remnants of dark tendrils vanished, I caught a glimmer of movement from the corner of my eye. Something dark and sinister watched us from the shadows, eyes glowing like coals in the fading light. A figure cloaked in the very essence of despair. "Foolish children," the figure hissed, its voice a terrible screech that split the air. "You think you have won, but darkness never truly fades. It merely waits." The air around us grew thick and heavy, the remnants of light struggling to hold their ground against the suffocating weight of the shadows. I felt a shiver run down my spine as I realized that we had awakened something far more dangerous than we had anticipated. "Run!" I shouted, grabbing the girl's hand as I pulled her toward the door. The figure laughed, a cruel sound that echoed in the narrow space, sending a jolt of fear through me as we stumbled back into the corridor. Desperation surged within me as we raced down the hall, heart pounding in my chest. I could hear the laughter follow us, haunting and echoing against the walls, growing louder with each step we took. "How do we get out?" she cried, panic rising in her voice. "I don't know," I admitted, my thoughts a flurry of possibilities as I focused on the flickering lights ahead. "We just need to keep moving." But the shadows were relentless, crawling along the floor, spiraling up the walls to reach us. I could see the dark figure emerge from the depths behind us, a silhouette against the fading light, its eyes burning with malice. "Your hope will only lead you to despair," it bellowed, the walls vibrating with its fury. I looked back, dread and determination intertwining in my chest. "We will find a way. We have to." Just as we reached a fork in the hallway, I spotted a staircase spiraling down into darkness. Above us, a bright light flickered, promising escape, but swirling shadows crept closer, threatening to engulf us. "Down!" I yelled, dragging the girl with me as we plunged into the abyss of the staircase. Each step felt like a leap into the unknown, a chilling reminder that the darkness was chasing us more. Relentless than ever, I could hear the whispers return, swirling around us, but now they felt different. Less like pleas and more like an ominous chant, foretelling a deeper horror. The further we descended, the heavier the atmosphere felt, pressing down like an invisible weight on my chest. "Quick!" I urged as we reached the bottom. The shadows pooled like ink across the floor, shifting and swirling in a frenzy, eagerly cutting off any chance of retreat. "This way," I shouted, spotting a heavy door at the far end of the dimly lit room. I dared not look back, the rushing sound of the darkness closing and spurring us on. As we reached the door, I felt a jolt of fear. It was marked with the same unsettling symbols I'd seen on the box. "Do you think it will lead us out?" the girl asked, her fear tangible. "There's no other choice," I replied, pushing against the door with all my strength. It swung open with a creak, revealing a vast expanse of darkness with flickering lights far in the distance. Tiny stars in an endless night. We stepped inside, but as soon as the door shut behind us, the chilling quiet enveloped us like a shroud. The whispers grew louder, echoing our fear, an unyielding chorus vibrating through the very air. I hesitated, searching for any signs of hope. "Where are we?" I whispered fearfully. "Looks like some kind of labyrinth," she replied, glancing at the twisting pathways laid out before us. "We have to keep moving." With that, we stepped into the labyrinth, knowing that every turn could lead us to danger or to freedom. But the shadows lingered just out of sight, haunting the corners of our minds, reminding us of the battle still to come. The weight of the darkness loomed over us, thickening the air, a constant reminder that we were not yet free. Each twist and turn felt like stepping deeper into despair. I was determined to find a way out. I would not let the shadows consume us. As we stepped deeper into the labyrinth, the walls seemed to close in around us, the shadows absorbing the light until we could barely see. Every turn we took felt like a choice leading us further into an endless tunnel of despair. The whispers returned, more frantic this time, swirling around us like a storm, echoing our fears back at us. I could hear them calling my name, taunting me with memories I'd rather forget. "You can't escape," they hissed, layering doubt over my thoughts. A chill ran down my spine, and I could feel the girl's grip tightening on my hand, her palms slick with sweat. "What do they want?" she whispered, her voice trembling. "I don't know," I replied, trying to keep my own fear at bay. "But we have to keep moving. Don't listen to them." With each step, I could feel the oppressive weight of the darkness pushing down on us, making it hard to breathe. The air grew colder, wrapping around my throat like a snake. I tried to focus on the path ahead, but it twisted and turned, each corner revealing more of that same creeping shadow. Then, without warning, the darkness surged forward like a wave crashing down. I barely caught a glimpse of it. A shape in the shadows, a figure with arms stretched out, grasping for us. Panic hit me like a punch to the gut. "Run!" I shouted, pulling the girl along as we sprinted down the dim corridor. The farther we ran, the louder the whispers became. They morphed into a chorus of agonizing screams, growing louder and more desperate. Each cry struck me straight in the heart, reminding me of every choice I had ever made, every moment of weakness. "You will pay for your sins," came the shrill cry of a voice from the depths of despair, echoing menacingly in the confined space. Adrenaline pulsed through my veins as I glanced back, breathless, and saw the shadowy figure clinging to the edge of the light we left behind. It was gaining speed, growing larger and darker, its twisted features becoming clearer. Hollow eyes, a mouth stretched wide in an unnerving grin, filled with jagged teeth. Suddenly, I stumbled, my foot catching on the uneven ground. The girl stumbled with me, and we fell hard against the cold floor. I scrambled to get up, but I felt the weight of the shadows creeping closer, the air thickening, tightening around me. "Get up! We have to go!" I urged, pulling her to her feet as we both gasped for air, fear pouring from us like a flood. "We can't let it catch us," she said, panic etched on her face as we pushed onward. We fled down yet another narrow passageway, walls slick with something cold and clammy. I didn't want to know what it was or where it came from. I could almost feel the shadows licking at our heels, hungry and relentless. Then, out of nowhere, I heard a soft scratching sound from behind the walls. It was rhythmic, like fingernails dragging across stone, creating a chilling melody that sent shivers through my body. "What is that?" I asked, horrified. "I don't know," she whimpered, glancing nervously at the walls. We pressed forward, propelled by pure fear, our hearts racing in sync. The scratching grew louder, echoing in the silence of the labyrinth, louder than before, as if whatever was behind the walls was trying to break free. "It's following us," I gasped, feeling terror settle deep in my chest. All of a sudden, the passage opened up into a small room. A single flickering light bulb struggled above, casting an eerie glow over a large, circular table in the center, covered in strange symbols and old, yellowed papers. "What is this?" the girl asked, scanning the room with wide eyes. "Some kind of ritual," I muttered, scanning the strange drawings beneath our feet. We stepped closer, an instinct urging us to inspect the clues. The walls were lined with mirrors, but when I looked in, nothing. No reflection. Just more darkness staring back. I turned away, unease crawling up my spine. "We need to find a way out." As I stepped back from the table, I heard a loud crash. My heart dropped. I turned to see the door behind us shatter as a dark figure lunged into the room. Everything became chaos as I felt the air thicken and swirl. The figure was monstrous, its face obscured by swirling shadows, eyes like burning coal. "No!" I screamed, backing away. The girl and I stumbled over the paper spread across the floor and crashed into the table, scattering the notes in every direction. As we scrambled to our feet, I barely had time to think before the figure lunged at us, its hand outstretched like a claw ready to snatch us away. In that terrifying moment, I noticed something glimmering on the table, half covered by the papers, a small, silver chalice. Without thinking, I snatched it up and hurled it across the room as hard as I could. The instant it hit the wall, a blinding flash of light erupted, illuminating the entire space. The dark figure howled, recoiling as the shadows pressed back, retreating from the sudden brightness. "It burns!" it shrieked, and for the first time, I saw its face. Twisted and pale, its features were sharp and contorted, filled with rage and pain. "Now!" I shouted, grabbing the girl's hand again. We dashed for the other exit, our hearts pounding like drums in our chests. The figure was still shrieking behind us, but the light from the chalice created a barrier, keeping the darkness at bay for a moment longer. As we fled, the whispers turned into frantic cries, shouting things I struggled to comprehend. I caught snippets of phrases that sent shivers down my spine. "You cannot escape. The void will consume you." We burst into another hallway that seemed to spiral endlessly. The walls appeared to stretch and distort as if the very structure of the labyrinth was alive, molding itself to ensnare us. I was right back into the depths of despair, unsure of where we were headed, but knowing we couldn't stop. The darkness flowed around us like a river, shifting and swirling, always just out of reach. Shadows darted in our peripheral vision, skimming the edges of the light. "Where do we go?" she gasped, her breaths quickening. "There!" I pointed to an opening at the far end, a flickering light, like a beacon in the oppressive gloom. But as we approached, the walls began to close in, as if trying to swallow the light whole. "No! Don't let them take it!" I yelled, urging us to push harder as the shadows recoiled in the presence of that flickering glow. Just as we reached the edge of the light, I felt a cold grip on my ankle. I looked down to see dark tendrils curling around me, pulling me back into the depths. "Help! It's got me!" "Hold on!" she screamed, tugging at my arm, but the more she pulled, the tighter the darkness gripped me. I could feel my strength draining away, the cold seeping into my bones, pulling me into an abyss of despair. "We can't let it pull you in," she shouted, desperation coloring her voice. "I'm trying," I yelled back, but there was nothing I could do. The darkness was powerful, hungry. I closed my eyes, willing myself not to be consumed, but the pressure was suffocating. Suddenly, I remembered the chalice, the light that had burned away the shadow before. "It has to be the chalice," I gasped, and in that moment, I could feel her pulling on my other hand with all her strength. "Get it!" I cried, knowing that the only way to save us both was to find a way back to that light. "Use the light against it," In a flash of instinct, she turned and ran back to retrieve the chalice, risking everything in that trembling moment. I felt the darkness sucking at my spirit, gnawing at my essence, but I refused to give in. I forced myself to focus on the light, hoping as hard as I could that she would succeed. With a final burst of energy, she returned, but the shadows were closing in swiftly, the sinister whispers rising to a crescendo that threatened to overwhelm us both. "Now, hold it up!" I shouted, feeling the tendrils tighten. She lifted the chalice high, a brilliant glow radiating outward as it channeled the light of our hope. Sunlight streamed forth, illuminating the room like a dawn breaking after a long night. The darkness recoiled as if burned, releasing its grip for just an instant. With a final surge of strength, we both cried out, "We are not afraid." As the light engulfed us, the shadows screamed and writhed, desperate to escape the illumination. I could feel the tendrils evaporating, dissolving into vapor as we pushed forward, moving toward the exit illuminated by hope. But the figure still loomed in the shadows, its rage palpable. "You cannot escape your fate," it screeched, the very air vibrating with its fury. With us racing toward freedom, the last whispers echoed in my ears. "You can run, but you cannot hide." But I refused to let those words take root. This time, we would find our way out. As we charged toward the exit, the light radiating from the chalice formed a protective barrier around us. I could see the shadows recoiling, fading in the wake of the brilliant glow, but I knew they wouldn't give up easily. The figure loomed behind us, its features twisted in a hateful snarl, a dark mass of smoke reaching for us with insatiable fury. I could hear its howls clawing at the edges of my mind, letting in cracks of fear that threatened to shatter the fragile hope we held. The room we dashed through began to twist, the walls bending in a nightmarish fashion, making it hard to keep track of where we were headed. I could feel the very fabric of reality shifting, warping as the darkness pushed against us. "Faster!" I urged, my heart pounding so hard it felt like a drum echoing in my ears. My legs felt like they were moving through molasses, the air thickening around us, each step feeling heavier, as if the shadows were trying to pull us back into their embrace. Suddenly, the figure lunged forward, arms outstretched, and the air around us turned icy cold. I felt a sense of foreboding deep within me, a primal instinct screaming that the creature would not stop until it captured us. I glanced back one last time, the sight of the shadow flaring out in desperate rage made bile rise in my throat. "Don't look back!" I shouted, forcing myself to focus on the light guiding our escape. We reached the exit, a door glowing with the same pulse as the chalice. I slammed my shoulder against it, but it wouldn't budge. "It's locked." Panic clawed at my throat, and I could feel the space around us tightening, the shadows creeping closer. I turned to the girl, my voice frantic. "We need to find a way to open it." In a moment of clarity, I remembered the symbols on the papers spread across the table in the other room. There had to be a way to unlock it, some hidden trigger.